2021. We know it's
Sorry, I
no
forgot to
worries.
press
It's
that
perfect.
button.
We know it's been a hectic, crazy year, but there's always things to celebrate. So I'm going to pause here. And if y'all want to drop it in the chat or unmute, we'd love to hear. Well, Aurora, you have a new gig to finish up 2021. So that sounds like a win to me. Would you like to share?
Yeah, I do. I've joined the team at Cuddly. It's the first time in 16, 17 years I haven't been in a shelter, so it's a little bit of an adjustment. But Cuddly is developing a platform to help large shelters run, sustain, grow their pet pantry programs. We all know how important they are. Like the last couple of years, especially, really shown a light on how we need to support our communities. So we're looking at everything from how we can connect shelters to the donors that are often sending these boxes of, cat food and cans of dog food. How can we get those two entities together so that way shelters can develop those donor relationships? As well as like supply chains. Are you getting one box today or a pallet, or and just really looking at how we can solve those just things that slow down progress, so we can make running pet pantries easier, and we can help more people. We actually have I wasn't going to plug the survey, but we have a survey because right now we're really just trying to hear from shelters to learn what the pain points are. I'm sorry for my bird. What the pain points are and what partners would want to see in a program like this. So I'm just going to drop the link to the survey in the chat. And if anybody wants to take it, we would love to hear from you.
Well, it is good to hear from you. And once you get that up and rolling and have some shelters on board, we'd love to have those shelters come and talk about what you're doing for them. So
yeah,
so
absolutely.
Good to see you. Summer as well. So folks, we are sharing just wins of 2021. We'd love to hear from all of you. If anybody would like to unmute. Sarah Aguilar, I'm going to pick on you. Share a win. You've been doing so much in your organization just to really move things forward. So share one of the amazing things that you've done.
We helped over 1,000 litters of kittens this year. And we just released 4 culture documents for our team that are really exciting and include things like culture on meetings and culture on emails, which is really important. And hopefully we get to share those with this group next year.
And the other thing I'll share, Sarah, is you and the amazing human resources team have been doing so much for the staff as far as just benefits. They're now supporting with pet health insurance and all of these things. So it's just amazing.
A 401.
Yeah. It's amazing to see a people first mentality. So Sarah, we appreciate you and your leadership. Anyone else? Let's share like 2 more wins and then we'll keep this moving.
So it's Kathy from Canada, Bobby. And my win is, that I continue to be involved in Haas, although I have moved, much like Aurora, out of sheltering, and was lucky enough to be invited to participate at the national level in Canada. So yes, very excited.
Congrats, Kathy. So now the whole Kathy from Canada thing totally makes sense. Miss Humane Canada. I love it.
Hey, Bobby, I've got that slide ready if you want me to share it.
Yes, I think this was a huge win of 2021. I just want to give a huge shout out to the team at Maddie's and Mary Smith and Lisa Ward and Shelly and everybody that have curated some of the best conversations that I've ever seen. Obviously, highlighting a lot of people of color, BIPOC folks, people that are doing social justice work. So if you have not had a chance to watch any of these, we know a lot of you have, a little bit of time over the holidays. It's a slow time. So definitely make sure we're going to drop the link in the chat. Check out as many of these as you can. All right, Mary Smith, I've taken up so much space already trying to get these updates. I really, really want to not send it over to you. You got the cool hat on. You have more dinosaur stickers in the back than you've ever had. Finish this off with the last Monday, Mary's motivation.
Well, thanks, Bobby. I really appreciate that. First, I just want to let you all know that there is a tornado resource and needs page on the forum. If you are from any of those areas that were hardest hit by the tornadoes, We continue to see pictures coming from that area. The devastation is just freaking unbelievable. If there are things you need or things you can provide, please check it out. I'm sure there are a lot of resource pages in a lot of places. We just wanted to add one more to the mix. So thank you all for that. So probably last Friday I was too caffeinated. They gave me like multiple times to talk, which trust me is just always bad. But here is the thing I've been thinking about most as 2021 comes to an end. And that is we spend a lot of time referring to ourselves as animal people. And my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Lori Peak, always reminds me that humans are animals too. So I would say that as we approach 2022 and thinking about resolutions, maybe as we go into the new year, we can think about more and different ways that we can show the love and tolerance we have for our four-legged love bugs to those two-legged people who we have to interact with on a daily basis. Because the only way this is going to work is that we can really start to see the whole picture, and the whole picture involves people and their pets and their needs, and figuring out how we can best serve both ends of the leash to make a better life for the planet. And that's really all I want to say, other than I can guarantee that next year I will have more dinosaurs because I just put in an order. And I think we're going to have a lot more fun together. So I hope you all can figure out in your schedules ways to come back and join us in 2022. It's you all have been the silver lining for this year for all of us. So thank you. I'm out, Bobby.
Shout out to Mary Smith for always bringing that Monday motivation, showing up. So speaking of showing up, before we move to national updates, I just wanted to also make one other acknowledgement. You know, when we talk about folks in this space having so much resilience and so much grit, and as I've had the opportunity to help build community and be a part of this community with all of you, you know, there's someone who's really been sitting close to my heart. And, you know, the work in itself can be so hard and can sometimes be traumatic and can sometimes be incredibly difficult. And y'all just keep showing up. But there's someone named Donna Casamento, who is someone that I just love, admire, and appreciate, that herself dealt with the tragedy toward the end of the year and still has just keeps on showing up. So my ask from all of you, one, let's show Donna some love. Two, for my holiday wish, I'm personally going to give a little donation to Palm Valley. So I'm going to give a $100 donation today to Palm Valley in honor of Donna and her resilience and just being an amazing human being. And I encourage all of you, you know, if you want to buy Donna a coffee, $5, send it over. I'm going to start off with 100. And Donna, I just want to open the floor to you for a second and just tell you that we love you and that you are amongst family.
You expect me to talk after that? Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much for everybody's love and support as I've been dealing with this over the last little over a month now. But knowing that I have this to come back to and this to continue the work that I love so much has been super helpful. And the support that I've gotten before this from everybody here and all that we've been dealing with here at Palm Valley, and knowing that the change that we envisioned for Palm Valley has happened. Our contracts are now approved in the new levels that we wanted them to be, so that we can hopefully sustain our organization going forward. And our team has stepped up, and our population is down, and we've got resources, financial resources coming in from our communities to help support us. So thank you, everybody, and love your family, love your people, and have a great holiday.
Thank you, Donna. And we love you. And, you know, when I always used to tell you, Donna, like, you got to have a little bit of faith in life. I didn't mean literally. You like took Faith Wright from our team, and now she's your new COO. So
yes, I did. Thank you all very much, especially for that.
Well, we're honored that you two are working together. You're all rock stars. Your team is amazing, and happy holidays for what it is, you know. So thank you so much. All right, folks, national updates. Let's open up the floor.
Hey y'all,
Okay.
it's Kathy from Canada here. Just a reminder that our Summit for Animals is coming in May of 2022. It's going to be hybrid. Registrations will open in January. And fingers and all other appendages crossed, we're going to have an in-person portion, and it will be held May 12th and 13th in Banff, Alberta, which is one of the most stunning places you could ever want to go. So hope to see you all there.
Thanks, Kathy.
This is Jamie from the Human Animal Support Services Project. We would like all of your organizations to be partner organizations in 2022. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat. It's an assessment, and join our Shelter Animals Count Coalition, and you can be a part of our partner organizations that are worldwide at this point. So join us.
Thanks, Jamie. Even though Jamie and I work very remote from each other, we'll try to like send each other messages as if we work in the office. So I'd be like, Jamie, can you also bring me a piece of that avocado toast you were just eating a minute ago? I would love some on the way to the office. Stacy LeBaron, you don't have anything to share from the Community Cat podcast? I got my shirt at home. You have to have something. You're always doing something.
Oh, I'm always sharing. Yeah. So I just thought I'd be nice and let others go. But January 8th, we're setting up for crazy 2022. January 8th, we have our Neighborhood Cats partnership that we have our Trapper certification workshop. We also, up until December, I believe it's 24th or 25th, the online cat conference registration, which we are so thrilled that Maddie's is a lead sponsor of. The online cat conference, January 28th through the 30th, and the registration is at $60, but we also have some awesome scholarship opportunities. So feel free to email me at stacy@communitycatspodcast.com if the $60 early bird special is too much, and you know of some folks that could really take advantage of that scholarship, feel free to email me at stacy@communitycatspodcast.com. We're also looking for groups to partner with for the Trapper certification workshop. So if you have volunteers that are interested in learning how to be TNR certified, also feel free to reach out to me, because we are matching up partners with all of our training dates in 2022. And I am collecting all my speakers for 2022 too. So for everything that's out there, my New Year's resolution is to just get everybody booked in January. So I'm doing all my year planning in 1 month.
Better relax on that. You're making me look bad. I'm barely planning into February right now. All right, last call, folks.
Hey, Bobby, I don't have an update, but I'd like to take a moment to thank you and just to give Bobby a shout out for being the most incredible facilitator and for coming to this space week after week and bringing joy, connection, and a real sense of community. So thank you, Bobby. You're incredible.
Thank you, sister. I appreciate you.
Ditto on that.
And obviously, Allison, none of this would be possible without the co-hostess with the mostest, always doing all the things behind the scenes. So.
And no, it was not a look for Bobby. You rock totally. We all agree.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear who's coming up next.
All right. Well, speaking of rock stars, I'm gonna be honest. I'm fanboying a little bit because there is someone who I think just is one of the coolest people in animal welfare that I have been following for a long time, and someone who I've actually just met recently who also blows me away with just how invested she is in community engagement and community support work. So as we're moving into this year and even through this community focused model, language is more important than ever. So I want to toss it over to Ms. Shaquila Brown and Lily Amato to talk to us about language. So over to you. And Ms. Brown, you are a freaking legend.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Bobby. I think it would be good to start with just mini introductions. So I'll go first and pass it to you, Shaq, and then I'll get us started. So yeah, my name is Lily Amato. I work at the Atlanta Humane Society on our community outreach team as the Associate Director of Community Outreach.
Hey everyone, I am Shaquila Brown. Most people call me Shaq. I work at the Humane Rescue Alliance. I am the Hope Specialist. We meaning I, and the Hope program is the Help Out, Partner, and Engage program. So we're definitely in the community mostly all the time.
Awesome. So yeah, this presentation gives us a chance to kind of dip our toes into community engagement. which is probably a term everybody's familiar with to a greater or lesser extent. It feeds into a lot of the Haas elements too, just with pet support services, supported self-rehoming. Community engagement comes up a lot in those conversations. And Shaq and I first got to present this as part of the Job Alike group that we're involved with, the Community Engagement Job Alike. So that group and a lot of us, right, we get to wrestle with complicated questions about how do we determine what services might be needed in a community, and how do we build programs to meet those needs. So today we're going to just start with some basic ideas, basic definitions for community engagements. What is it? Why do we do it? Those sort of things. And at the very end, we'll briefly chat about some phrases or language that's commonly used. And in some cases, some alternatives that might be helpful if you're just trying to improve your relationship with an individual, or even communicate compellingly with like a high-level donor or some stakeholders. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared. We even have a PowerPoint presentation to go along with. All right. So to start us off, give it a second. Hey, all right. So this was the first distinction that inspired this topic. What is community engagement versus community outreach? And for me, this was personally relevant because our team here at the Atlanta Humane Society is our community outreach team. But often a lot of the language that we're dealing with is community engagement and how it works within our community. So in my research, I got to learn that community outreach is often kind of shorter term in scope and used to complete a specific project or a goal defined by the organization. So this could be an event, maybe you've got a pet food event where you're trying to distribute food to 100 individuals. Whereas community engagement is more along the philosophies of long-term relationship based. It's the goal of creating space for the community to connect, a place for folks to raise concerns, build power, and act in their own interests. So now I can differentiate kind of mentally that if our ultimate goal is community engagement, that we want to engage with the community, create this lasting space for people to act in their own interests and to problem solve, then community outreach, some of those more targeted events, can be one of the first steps or a tool to use along that path. Now, this graphic I really like. I got it from the booklet called The Principles of Community Engagement, the second edition. That was the one published in 2011 by the NIH and CDC. And the booklet itself is pretty amazing. It emphasizes that community involvement is essential in recognizing health concerns and interventions in human health. Now, we happen to know that the exact same applies to pet health as well. So I'm a visual person. I really like how this represents that there's a relationship between outreach and engagement. They're not standalone concepts, but they may exist along the spectrum, right? Where we're seeing increasing communication, trust, and impact as we kind of move left to right across here. So now that we've got some of those basic phrases under our belt, we move on to the big question, the kind of core question that our work hinges on. Why engage with the community? And we begin with the recognition that health for both humans and for pets starts in our communities, right? The places where we're living, where we're working and learning and playing. We recognize that lifestyles, so behavior, health, they're all shaped by both our social and physical environments. Many Americans face significant barriers to pet care. We all know it. You could take, for example, a pet owner with no car who lives 5 miles from the nearest vet clinic, and their dog's vaccinations have come due. That's a significant barrier, right? And that's related to their physical environment, and it may affect the outcome of what kind of care is provided, regardless of the owner's desire or willingness to provide that care. So when we're talking about reducing these sort of barriers in pet care, it's a conversation that must involve the people that are experiencing those barriers, right? Because they're going to have the best understanding and offer the most appropriate solutions. So an outsider's perspective to that example might be like, well, why don't you just hop in a car and drive to the vet clinic? But we can all think of reasons why that might not be a viable solution for somebody in that situation. So we know barriers exist. We know that people experiencing those barriers are going to offer essential insight. So kind of the final ingredient is just the fundamental belief that people should have opportunity. And in this case, it's the opportunity to make choices that allow them and their pets to lead healthy lives, right? So with all that together, we understand that any approach where we're trying to increase access to pet health care or opportunities for care must engage and involve the community. So that way we can take into account the diverse perspectives and situations of the people living in our communities. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Shaq.
Okay, so hello everyone. So I'm really excited about this. I had an experience this weekend, which I'll go into later for an example about engaging in community things. And this topic came up to me because I actually had a conversation with a colleague and talking about the difference between community outreach and community engagement. And since I never really looked at that, I looked at it as me always engaging the community for the long haul, not like a short-term situation. So I always thought it was just, oh, I'm always engaging, I'm always reaching out. And I didn't necessarily think about the language of it. So this piqued my interest even more dealing with the job alike group. So who are we trying to engage? Everyone. And everyone is in different ways. Like some people do have internet access, but then others don't. So again, we will have to do it in different ways. Let me close this window. We'll have to do it in different ways so we're not leaving anyone out. This client specifically, like she came to the pet pantry, her dog needed assistance, but also she needs assistance too, because you see it's a cane in the picture and things like that. So we want to be able to engage everyone on different levels. Sometimes people assume that our community may be mostly of one group, but then we have everyone seeking services. So no one should be left out just because you may assume that this type of person or that type of person needs assistance. You can go ahead. So understanding the culture in the community is super important. I think that when people go to communities, it's really important to understand where they're coming from and where they are already. Like you can't come in and trying to figure out, oh, I'm just going to say what I want to say, I'm going to do what I want to do. No, it is best to actually do a little research on that specific community. And using other organizations because they are already in the community. This is at a church, and this pastor has been in the community for many years, and there's different things going on. But he also, said, hey, you can use the back of the church. People come out here in this big field area. And unfortunately, many dogs use this area to use the bathroom. So that spot was perfect because many people come out on a regular basis. And respecting the culture and the community. And again, each community may be different. So say if you're working at a shelter and you move to a different location, because since there are different people changing jobs and changing positions and doing different things and going from state to state, it is really about, to me, researching and really understanding what's going on there, because you can always bring your own ideas from, like you came from a different state, you're going to come to a different, to another state to work. It's really about seeing what has been working there first and then bring on your ideas. And again, respecting the culture. And as you can see, this cat who was one of our community cats was like, he was waiting in line to get food. He comes and visit once a month. And it's funny that we now see him for the past 3 months. He's just been visiting. So we really enjoy him, and he likes to come to the people. He'll, stand there, get pet and things like that. You can go to the. So what you find may surprise you. So I took these pictures just last week. Literally, there is a cat food shortage. Now I feed 10 cats of my own here in Maryland, and I took pictures. These are at Giant, Shoppers, and then this is Target in the last picture with the red. Like Target literally had no food. And I literally call Friskies because it's not necessarily just about me, but it's about the community, because I can drive to all of these different places to find the different foods or things like that. But people who cannot leave their community, people who don't have access to go online to order Chewy and things like that. So this really shocked me because I was like, oh, my stray cats, what are they going to eat? Then I started thinking like, wow, what are my clients? How are they going to feed their cats, their own wet food, even though we have a pet pantry that is just supplemental. And so me even doing even further research, this is part of the community engagement, because you're constantly looking to see what's going on around and not just like, oh, well, we can help them to disagree, but it's up to them to go further. And I think sometimes people assume, as Lily mentioned earlier, that people can just catch an Uber and, you know, they can just go online. Well, not everyone has access. So when you're in the community, engaging them or just doing like a one-time stop, please have these type of things in your mindset that they may not have access to this. Because like literally I was surprised. And like I said, I called Friskies and I was told that there is that there was a more demand. And I was like, oh, is it like 50 more cats, you know, billion cats in the world? Or is it just that maybe your shipment is stuck somewhere, you know, in between the water docks? Again, this really, really shocked me. The fact that I drove around, took pictures, and really found this to be like a serious cat canned food shortage. So keep that in mind. So coalition building. Now, this is Mr. Silas in the picture, and he has a Shih Tzu and his pit bull. And this particular group, this is a police event. They bring out different organizations. And when you're doing community engagement, it's always important to partner with these organizations, because even though this is the police event, they invite other nonprofit agencies, non-government agencies to come out to bring services into the community. So that helps us to constantly, you know, are always reaching out. So it helps us to constantly build a relationship. And this is also like a holistic approach, because the community just doesn't need pet food. They just don't need one type of service. They need many services. Because as we know that when you go into a community, there are so many different people needs. So the animal need is also there, but there's tons of people needs as well. And just going out there as an animal group, you may be seen sometimes as, oh, they just care about people. And even though like I've been in this field for so long, in the past, people have said that, oh, you just care about animals. You just care about animals, because what they see on the news, or if they see a story about an animal that is injured, people make a lot of noise about it. People write letters, people do all these different things. And so in the recent years, the more human issues that have been going on, then that's when we see more people protest about human rights issues. But in the past, there has been definitely many different animal organizations talking about animals, and people who may like, oh, you know, I like dogs, I like cats, but I don't have a pet. They see that very distinct line. And I think it is up to us to recognize, I think as Mary said, that we're not just animal people, that you do have to be a people person, because at the end of the day, a dog will never turn a knob to get out of his house. A person will have to either change their mind about how they're treating their pet, or someone has to call for that animal in distress. So it really is about helping the people. Also, the community is familiar with these organizations already. So when we partner or collaborate with other organizations that are not animal organizations, then those groups already have a trust. They already know, the people in the community already know that, oh, they're going to be out here every Tuesday or every different, you know, Wednesday of the month, so we can go out and be with them and build and help for us to build trust and say, oh, those animal people are not just about animals, but they're also about the community itself. Representation from the community, which is really important. As Lily had mentioned earlier, this is a picture where these community members actually had their own Halloween party, like they're trying to get a dog park in a certain part of DC, which really shows like how much, I don't want to say fairness, but equity there is with dog parks. There are dog parks in DC that are over $1 million, where this area can't even get like $200,000, $300,000 to get a dog park started. And people have their own ideas about a dog park, whether they're good or they're bad. But in this part of the city, this is a huge park. And most people who live in this part of the city, like they have apartments that are there. And most of the apartments are no pets. And so helping to engage the community also gives them a voice, right? It gives them a voice to speak about their animals, which then helps give them a voice to speak about other issues. A lot of times people don't speak up about their own animals because they fear of retaliation, depending on where you are. If you're like sitting out there in apartments where you're not supposed to have animals, you're not going to talk about, yeah, like my dog needs a place to run around as well. So this is a beginning of helping people to discuss what's going on in their community with their animals, but also more with their own rights, with their own issues that, again, are different depending on like what part of the city you're in. Especially in DC, there's definitely a difference of east of the river services. This is my 7th year doing the Pets for Life / Hope program. And when I first started, we picked certain areas, 3 different zip codes. And these same zip codes still have 1 vet out of for all 3. There's still no pet store. There's still only 1 grocery store out of the 7 years of me doing this program in this particular part of the city. So none of that has changed, but the houses are now worth, you know, $700,000 in different parts. So the things that have changed is Starbucks, but still no pet store. So there are different things that are changing, but not necessarily for animals and people who love and have their animals. So it is important that we are also on the same page with the community as far as engaging them and seeing what their needs are. And again, this also helps them to get involved, and they will feel empowered to make changes for themselves. I don't necessarily think that they can do it on their own, and it's not necessarily just their responsibility, because in some areas of the world and in the city, it is purposely done. And sometimes people, they don't like to believe it. They just think, oh, people, as people say, you know, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and do different things. Sometimes you can look at situations, if you look at it with non-judgment and just say, oh, wow, this part of the city, like where I live, there are 6 grocery stores and we have 3 vets and 2 pet stores. And when you look at another part, you don't see any of that, then that is not like, oh, it's just a coincidence. And I think to be honest, to actually like look at a community and honestly look at the whole total picture of the community and how long things have been done a certain way in the community and what resources are there, I think that we can really represent the community and go into community honest when you have an open eye on things like that.
All right. So we'll kind of wrap up with this little section, the words we use, because we were discovering as this whole presentation started with language that the words we choose to use to communicate with people or to communicate an idea are super important. First and foremost, right? If your aim is to build relationships with somebody and increase communication, you want to try to avoid offending folks by making just assumptions. And also you want to try to be delivering this information clearly. So a good example, right? Instead of talking about, hey, I'm here to educate you on, I don't know, heartworm prevention, using a phrase more like I'm sharing information or I've got some information to share can be helpful when you're just interacting with folks. A personal favorite of mine, instead of feral cats, maybe try using like community cats, unless they are actually feral. Once again, just trying to help kind of reframe maybe our relationship to these cats and how they might not just be wild animals, but kind of part of the community. And then these last 2, I actually found from this great publication called A New Way to Talk About the Social Determinants of Health. And I recommend anybody who's kind of interested in linguistics and the words and their specific effects, check it out. But they have a lot of good information about phrasing and how it impacts the message and how it is received by the people you're trying to communicate with. So in this case, they were talking about maybe instead of using the word poverty, try things like saying families who can't afford the basics in life, or instead of low income workers, try using a phrase like, oh, people who work for a living and still can't pay their rent. And I think what's really cool about these is in addition to being technically accurate, right? These alternate phrases are exactly what they say they are. They're also more indicative of kind of how we relate to people. So instead of being more clinical, right, where it's accurate, but it doesn't have much feeling in it, using phrases that help communicate that kind of emotion, that relationship can be really helpful, especially if you're thinking about talking with donors or a diverse group of stakeholders, or just any group that might come from a large different perspective, and trying not to alienate different folks from it. So this was just a fun little section on this. I know there's a lot of other words. Jamie, I know you brought up last week kind of just the idea of using, I think like animal relinquishment, right? That might not be clear to people that need to get rid of their pet. And so sometimes using still clear but more colloquial terms can be helpful in communicating and making sure your information is given the words it needs. And yes, I got some works cited here. So anybody who's interested in checking out any of these PDFs, please, I recommend it. That's what we've got. Thank you guys so much.
Lily and Miss Brown, thank you so much. And I know all of us, I mean, I've seen all the cheers and the applause going on just about the language and the way that you're presenting this, but really this is just a teaser. Lily, Shaq, people from San Diego Humane Society, other organizations that are doing community engagement work, host and facilitate our peer group for community engagement. So if you're interested in diving deeper into these sorts of conversations, please join. They meet twice a month for just an hour. You don't have to do any work outside of the call. And we'd love to have you. So speaking of which, I know we talked about the language, but now let's get to the real programs, right? The real nuts and bolts. And what I really love with having Jesse Sullivan here is there's some organizations that just go out and they do, but then once they have mastered it, they're really going out and supporting other organizations and implementing programs. So Jesse, I'm going to come over to you. I know you have a bunch of rock stars with you, so I'll leave the introductions to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks so much for having us today. Super excited to be here. Six has been participating in the Haas calls for a while, and we're definitely appreciative of the leadership and just the opportunities that you all are providing to hear from such great people and great organizations who are really doing the work and making this field what it is. So happy to be here today. I do have a few people and organizations who are joining me. I'm going to introduce them in just a minute. I'll talk a little bit about SIXA and our Safe Pet program first. And then, as Bobby said, we tried to create an opportunity where we could share that information with others. So we have a few other organizations who participated in our apprenticeship who you're going to hear from as well. So it's okay. I'll go ahead and share my screen, I think. Okay, you all see that okay?
Looks great.
Okay, so I'm with SIXA Pet Adoption and Wellness Center. We're located near Dayton, Ohio. We have been around since 1974, but we actually started as a all volunteer led kind of small foster-based rescue, and have really grown to what we are today. So in 2020, February of 2020, we moved into our brand new facility, 25,000 square feet. It's more than twice the size of where we came from, which was an old converted shopping center. So while we had the unfortunate timing of having our grand opening about 3 weeks before everything shut down for the pandemic, we've really, especially in 2021, we've started to see some opportunities for growth, and I'm really excited about the programs that we've been offering. So, at SIXA, we do adoptions and placements. We have a help center, which is where our Safe Pets program falls, where we're mostly going to be talking about that today. We have a public spay neuter program. We do TNR. We have a full service veterinary clinic, so we do offer wellness to the public. This year, we also started a community vet care program. We're actually taking our vet clinic out into the communities. So we're looking at places that have veterinary deserts in the Dayton area, and basically setting up offsite vet clinics for a day where we can see people's pets. And then we do humane education as well. In our help center, which is kind of our community resource center, that's where it is intake and rescue transfer, but it's also intake diversion, talking about community cats, our Safe Pets program, pet food assistance. We offer some financial assistance, which often gets used for our programs in the vet clinic. We're also expanding into things like paying for people's pet deposits. So we're putting that funding towards our intake diversion. But what we're really going to focus on today is our Safe Pets program. So our Safe Pets program is where we provide temporary care for pets whose owners are in crisis. We've had this program for really about a decade, but it started very small and kind of ad hoc. It was mostly a program for victims of domestic violence. We took on maybe a couple of cases a year. We have a local domestic violence advocacy organization, and we kind of worked with them for referrals. So it was pretty small. And I think it was in maybe 2019, we had a phone call from a gentleman who was looking for help, similar type of help, but he was in a situation where he was going into a drug rehab program, and he was really desperate not to surrender his pets. He was looking for some kind of alternative, and we thought, well, we have this program for victims of domestic violence. Why can't we apply this in other situations? And for those of you who don't know, Dayton has a bit of a dubious title of opioid overdose capital of the world. I think in the Midwest in general, and Dayton in particular, drugs are a very big problem here, especially in the last few years. So this wasn't an unusual situation to be in. So then over the next couple of years, just kind of case by case, we really started to expand into other programs. We had an adopter who called us who had a house fire and needed help. And we really started to realize that the need for this type of program really went beyond just what we were originally, the people we were originally helping, that there were all types of emergencies where people needed this kind of assistance. So you can see here, I won't go through these numbers just for the sake of time, but I wanted to put on here some of the work that we're doing. It's still not a huge program. I mean, it's growing, and it is growing quickly. I will say, even in the last 6 months of 2021, we've seen a huge increase. Looking at our monthly data from November to October, we doubled the amount of calls. We have 2 safe pets who are coming in today. We have 5 active right now, which is probably about the biggest number that we've had active so far this year. So while it hasn't been huge, I think we're doing what we can when we can, and we're working with some great partner organizations who are really helping the pet owners themselves kind of get through these crises so that they can then be reunited with their pets. And it's really a very, very rewarding program. Okay, so the other thing we wanted to talk about today was our Safe Pets Apprenticeship. So we were very lucky to receive a Rachel Ray No-Kill Excellence Grant this year that allowed us to do this apprenticeship. And we had the opportunity to bring some other organizations. We ended up having 13 across the United States. We did 2 different cohorts, kind of one in the early summer and one in the fall, where we were able to provide a lot of the information that we've learned through this program and provide copies of our paperwork and talk about our challenges and our successes. And I guess I really want to say, sometimes I think, why CICSA? Why are we qualified to do this? And I just want to make the point that, we don't have a perfect program. It's not a huge program, as you can see, but I joke that we've probably over the last decade made every mistake possible in this type of program, and we've learned from those. And so I think we've had the opportunity to talk about those mistakes in a learning environment and talk about how we've corrected them and how we prepare for them and prevent them in the future. And I think we thought if we can help other organizations who are either interested in getting this type of program started or maybe have a small program and help prevent them from making those mistakes, then it would certainly be worth our time and effort. So you can see a little bit about our objectives here, but it was mostly just to learn about our Safe Pets program. Again, we're not saying that this is the only way to run it or this is the way you have to do it, but this is what we've learned and this is what works for us. And just bringing people together, kind of like Haas, to dialogue about the work we're doing and the structure and the processes. Again, we provided all of the paperwork because we also wanted to pay it forward a little bit. We had help from other organizations. Rough Haven is one. I spent some time communicating with the folks at Rough Haven, and they actually provided their paperwork as examples to us. So I think it's great when we can share information like that and not have to start from scratch. So we wanted to pay that forward as well. And so you can see just kind of our session topics and our general takeaways, which I think Josh and Brittany and Katie, I'll introduce them in just a second, are going to talk about as well. But I think the things that we really wanted to convey, that all types of organizations can implement a similar program. I mean, CICSA has grown a lot over the years, but we're certainly not huge. And you don't have to bite off more than you can chew. You can start small, look for opportunities for success. We started out on that kind of case-by-case basis and had a few small successes and have really capitalized on that. Finding great partners to work with. I've mentioned that we work with some advocacy organizations, the local YWCA, Domestic Violence Advocacy Group. We just started a new partnership with Kettering Health Network, which is one of the large hospital networks in our area. So they have a behavioral health center, and we've taken on a couple of safe pets. They have patients who come in and they've been finding out, a couple of days into their stay that they have pets at home who aren't receiving care, and they need someone to call for help. So now they have CICSA and they have someone to reach out to, and we're developing relationships in the community to help those patients as well. So it's great to have good partners. We tried to be upfront in the apprenticeship and with the other organizations that we get asked a lot about risk and about liability. And while we address those in every opportunity that we can and try to prepare for them and mitigate risk, you certainly can't eliminate it, right? So you have to be willing to take a little bit of risk. And I think the rewards are huge. So hopefully it'll end up being worth it. And then just communication and documentation are key throughout the Safe Pets program and your partnerships and your clients with your fosters. There's a lot of communication that needs to happen that's really important. And probably one takeaway before I pass it over to our other organizations that I didn't include on here. You can see it in our list of topics. We talked about marketing and sponsorships. I also just wanted to point out that this program for us has really opened up doors for funding opportunities, sponsorships, partnerships that they previously sort of looked over us if we applied for grants, because it was kind of like Shaq was talking about, right? There's the assumptions that we're all about animals and we're not about people. And our funding, we fund people programs. So this has really given us the opportunity to show that we're all about people too. We have a really great help center manager here, and she often says that when people call CICSA, no matter what they're calling for, she wants them to get some kind of help. It may not be the help that they thought they were looking for, but there's some type of help that we can offer. We really are a people-focused organization, and this program has really allowed us to secure some additional grants, some funding, some sponsorships that have been huge for our organization in general. Okay, so we have 3 of the organizations who participated in the apprenticeship today. We have Josh from Animal Rescue League of Iowa. We have Brittany from Muddy Paws Rescue, and we have Katie Anderson from Gateway Pet Guardians. And they were all great participants in this apprenticeship, very involved. I think they're all doing great work too, and they have a lot of great stuff to share with you all. But I think they're also representative of the variety of organizations that we had participate. CICSA is a private nonprofit. So, Animal Rescue League is similar in that aspect, but Muddy Paws is a foster-based rescue. Gateway Pet Guardians is a very kind of help center focused organization. We had government organizations participate. So again, just to kind of reiterate that there are many types of organizations that can start this type of program. So I will pass it over to Josh from Animal Rescue League and let him take it from here.
Hello, everybody. Josh, like you said, from the Animal Rescue League of Iowa. We're out of Des Moines, Iowa. And before I start, I just want to really bring a lot of kudos to this call, because it's because of this call I heard about the apprenticeship and just a tremendous amount of wealth that comes from this call in terms of just knowledge and things that I wouldn't have otherwise known, because I'm new to the animal welfare space. So I started in late June, and this was the first thing that was recommended to me to get plugged into, so that way you can learn a lot. And so we really, Animal Rescue League has been around for a while, so we have a lot of things that other organizations don't, including the pet support services. So a lot of the things that were talked about before are all things that I get to work on and really get the opportunity to just learn and grow from. But this program in particular was a big interest to me, because we have a crisis foster program. And I put it in parentheses because it's not really a foster-based program. It's really only emergency boarding. We bring people in and give them an opportunity to keep their animal here in the shelter for about 2 weeks. It was only historically done for domestic violence or like natural disasters, fires, floods, things like that. So it really wasn't opened up to a lot of the things that we were hearing that were of an issue. And I think that was really one of the big things for us was from a takeaway perspective was the paperwork, because before we had a contract that was about the only paperwork that we had in there. We weren't tracking the reasons, we weren't tracking the calls, we weren't tracking the interest. So I think that was really the big thing for us. So it was allowing us to really get our paperwork and process set up to really expand the program. So the request form was huge. So now we can at least see how many people are needing a service like this, where they're coming from, what the reasons are, a little bit more about their pets to better evaluate that. The third party communication form was huge because again, we're working with other organizations, so that way they can better understand what we expect out of them, what they can expect out of us. The behavior form was another big piece because again, we would ask some questions, but never really in a formalized way. So being able to do that. The contract was again huge because just like Jesse said, liability and risk was always a big reason of holding this back. And so really having that to really build a foundation on. And then the foster addendum was another huge one because again, we're going to utilize the foster system, which we're blessed to have a great foster network, but we didn't really have anything addressing this program in particular. So again, not having to reinvent that wheel, having the opportunity to really just plug that in, change up a few things here and there, and really just allow it to roll from there, which I think that was really the big part that I just so incredibly blessed. Like Jesse said, we not have to reinvent the wheel, not to have to start from scratch on the paperwork. We put a lot of this into digital form. So that way, again, just kind of streamlines that process. And then the other big, two other big things. One is really just changing the name. We called it a crisis foster, but that wasn't what we were doing. And that's not always what we're going to do. So we really wanted to really change the name to really reflect a little bit more of what we're trying to do in terms of the crisis care. So that way they know their animals getting taken care of one way or another. And then the other big part, and again, I didn't put this in there, but I again want to thank Jesse for is the homework. So it really allowed us to help hold us accountable throughout the piece. And one of the things that they included is findhelp.org. And that allowed us, like, it was crazy to see how many organizations are out there willing to help animals in need and people in need. And like, we weren't even listed on some of the things that we also do. And so that was one of the things that we immediately got plugged into. And now people, when they search findhelp.org, the Animal Rescue League will be on there. So I just, again, thank you, Jesse, and thank you for the opportunity to share this program. Our program is night and day different to what it was before we started. So thank you.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that. Thank you for the homework. Has anyone ever said that? Thank you for homework. I don't know that that's ever been said, but I do want to say too that, we got a lot out of this apprenticeship because through the questions that got asked and the programs that people have already, we learned things and made changes within our own program that we hadn't thought about or done before. So I know we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to pass it off to Brittany. She's the foster coordinator at Muddy Paws Rescue.
Hi, I'll go through this pretty quickly then. So we can go to the next slide. But I'm Brittany Lee Still, and I'm with Muddy Paws Rescue. So just a little bit about us. We're based in New York City. We are a dog-only rescue, and we're 100% foster-based. So we do not have a single kennel. We do have an in-person headquarters, but we are not licensed to be a shelter. Our dogs generally come from the South, but we also bring dogs in locally from New York. And we do not have any existing Safe Pets program currently. This was sort of came at a really good time because this is part of our strategic plan going forward. And so we wanted to learn a little bit more about what these programs look like. Please stop licking me. So opportunities that I got from this program, it was, again, just really helpful kind of going through everything with Jesse and Nora. Like Josh said, it was great not having to reinvent the wheel here. So I was getting a lot out of this. And so from our homework, I really saw that we do have a high level of need for this kind of program here. There's a lot of people with pets in New York City. There's also, of course, a lot of income inequality that prevents people from being able to access the kind of resources that they need to stay with their dogs. We also have a lot of existing shelters and hospitals and clinics that we found through Find Health. And we also have a really cool organization called Paws, which already does offer temporary housing for their clients who are in crisis, and they serve seniors who are low income. We also have a very dedicated foster base. We're very lucky to have a really good group of fosters who keep coming back, and we are so thankful for them. And then this also gives us the opportunity to use fosters that we might not be able to use otherwise. Our fosters generally are required to attend weekly adoption events, but that's really difficult for people who, work on Saturdays or who don't have the means to transport, a 40-pound dog on the subway. It's not very easy here. So this sort of program would give us an opportunity to use fosters that we wouldn't normally be able to use long-term. Okay, off. As far as challenges go, like I said, being 100% foster based, we do not have anywhere to house the dogs in the event of an emergency. So specifically thinking about a behavioral issue where a dog has bit a human or another dog, we cannot realistically move that dog until we have another foster secured. And like everybody else, we're limited on the kind of fosters who can take in behavioral challenging dogs. So that's generally the biggest challenge for a program like ours. Being that we aren't a shelter, we also don't have a vet on staff. We do have really great vet partners who offer us very significant discounts, but certainly our vet care is one of our biggest expenses, and this would be expanding that as well, because we would want all of our dogs in this sort of program to be altered and up to date on their vaccines and all of that. Another challenge would be recruiting fosters for longer term opportunities. And of course, that's difficult for everyone everywhere, but especially in New York, it is very difficult to find just the fosters who can foster for longer than 2 weeks or so at a time. There's a lot of travel, there's a lot of busy work schedules, so it just gets a little complicated. Another issue would be the reliability of behavior assessments. This is something that our new headquarters definitely gives us a bigger opportunity to explore. So that's really exciting. But of course, it is always a concern, getting behavioral information from an owner, and then of course, whether or not that's going to be accurate once the dog moves to a foster home. And that's the same for our dogs who are adoptable as well. Another challenge that we talked about in the apprenticeship was basically the competition aspect of moving fosters from adoptable dogs to safe pets dogs, and essentially like making sure that that never feels like a competition, because it is, we're all on the same team and we're all working towards this goal together. But it is, of course, something logistically to think about. Do we want this foster who's really experienced to foster a safe pets dog for 2 months, or do we want them to foster like 4 adoptable dogs in that same period of time? And then the last thing is transportation challenges. Like I said, transporting a dog in New York City is very difficult and very expensive. And so that is an issue for us currently, and will continue to be one once we get this program up and running.
Go ahead, Brittany. Go ahead.
Sorry. So just the takeaways, and I wish that I had thought to add in about the paperwork like Josh. It was incredibly helpful, like A+, amazing, really great to have something to work off of with that. But my big takeaways from the apprenticeship was not to let the small percentage of times that liability and legal issues might come up be a reason to hold you back from doing a program to begin with. The amount of help that we can provide to people from this kind of program just greatly outweighs any sort of risk that we're facing. And this is something, it's something that has been holding us back from exploring this, and it's something that holds back a lot of organizations from doing this kind of program. And ultimately, we need to make the decision to commit and dive in, because we can do so much good there. Another one was looking for easy victories in the beginning, and that's really important. This is something that we definitely would have to start off very small on and kind of take our wins when we can. And so it's good not to have that pressure to, do, a huge number of cases in the beginning while we're still finding our footing. Looking for existing partnership opportunities was another big one. Really searching findhelp.org was an amazing resource to see that we really do have a lot of places that we could connect with who might be interested in partnering with us. And so that was really reassuring to see that we have all of these opportunities. I loved hearing that this program sells itself to donors. Jesse was telling us that even donors who generally weren't donating to their regular programs were very excited about a Safe Pets program. And I love hearing that. Of course, the cost of the program is always going to be a concern. And so that was really reassuring and exciting just to hear that people are as excited about this sort of service as we are. And then just being mindful of what's shared on social media. I really liked being able to talk through what is and isn't appropriate to share. Of course, we never want anything that we post to put anyone in danger, or even just to put them in a position where they have to feel badly about whatever crisis they're going through. And so just being very clear with people participating in the program about what they're comfortable having shared, because it could be their photo, or it could be their name or their dog's photo, but not them, or maybe just their story. And then you use other dogs' photos as a placeholder. So that was really helpful. And in general, I would just really, really like to thank Jesse for everything. This apprenticeship was so helpful, and it just got me really, really excited to get started.
Thanks so much, Brittany. We know, folks, it's the top of the hour and many of you may have to hop onto other calls. So to all of you that need to hop off, please feel free to. And we just want to wish you happy holidays and hope to see you in 2022. But the last thing I'm going to do to end my year is cut off hearing from Gateway Pet Guardians, because I love hearing from Gateway Pet Guardians. So Jesse, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks everyone for hanging out. If there's those of you who can stay a few extra minutes, I think it'll be worth it hearing from Katie. Thanks to Brittany. I think it's great to lay out the challenges and the takeaways. We tried to be very upfront in the apprenticeship that there will be challenges, and I think it's great to talk about them and ways that you can overcome them. You certainly don't want to pretend that they don't exist, but again, not let them become barriers whenever possible. So those are challenges that Brittany and others look forward to overcoming. All right, I will pass it off to Katie with Gateway Pet Guardians.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to wrap up the call with y'all. My name is Katie Anderson. I work at Gateway Pet Guardians. I am a social worker, and I'm our community support manager at our Pet Resource Center in East St. Louis. I'll try to keep this really short and sweet, just in the interest of time. So inside our Pet Resource Center at Gateway Pet Guardians, we have a low-cost vet clinic, a pet food pantry, a retail store with all kinds of pet supplies. We place pets in foster homes. We do adoptions. We have a TNR program. We offer vaccine clinics, and then occasionally we'll help with reclaim fees sometimes at animal control. And so really, we would love to have a temporary boarding program in place. We don't have one in place right now. So we do really, we get occasional requests from the community just asking for help for temporary boarding. So we are tracking the reasons why people need help. And you can move to the next slide. And so just kind of where are we now with our temporary boarding program? Like I said, we don't have one in place, but we're having ongoing discussions with our leadership team. So about what will this look like when we have this in place? What can we do to respond? And are there other ways that we can help? We have the infrastructure in place. I've heard a lot of us talk about how helpful it has been to have the forms from the apprenticeship and to share that paperwork there. So we're solidifying our forms, solidifying our process. We know we have the drive to do the work. Our staff is bought in, so we really just need to solidify our process, stay patient, look for funding. We're trying to understand what kind of crises would be eligible under the program, what length of stay we would require, or Are we going to use a separate foster base? Are we going to have the same foster base? We're looking at building new community partnerships with our human service organizations. And we're setting goals for 2022 with the idea of starting out small, starting out with the small successes. And then just some of the roadblocks that have come up. So budgeting for 2022 has really focused on sustainability. We are not really so much focusing on new programs. When we initially thought that we were going to have, money in the budget for a new program for temporary boarding, that's not the case, but we are really hopeful that if we find the funding that we can kind of get this rolling. So we do have a shortage of foster homes right now. Our shelter has been full for the past few months. And so that's been a challenge. But one takeaway that I want to leave everyone with is that we know that this work doesn't stop here. We can still make progress by forming new community partnerships, by getting all of our forms and paperwork in place, by getting those approved by our executive director and looking for funding and marketing opportunities. So we're really, really hopeful that we can roll out the program as soon as possible. And just as a social worker myself, I'm super excited to be involved in this work. And I'm really, really appreciative to help further our mission. That's pretty much all I got.
Thanks, Katie. And I know your contact information is there. I went ahead and put all of our contact information just on one slide. Certainly happy to have people reach out if you have questions. While we don't have any immediate plans to do another apprenticeship, we are happy to share the information and answer questions if you all have them. So again, thanks, Bobby, for having us today. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Josh and Brittany and Katie for not only your participation in the apprenticeship, but joining us in this call too.
Well, and thank you to the other 76 folks that have stuck around. And for the last time, I get to say in 2021, Mary Soros, close us out.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, everyone. Lily and Miss Brown, Jesse, Josh, Brittany, and Katie. And I think Katie made you proud. So that was really great. Bobby, Allison, thank you all. And mostly I want to thank Maddie. If it wasn't for Maddie's fun, we all wouldn't be doing this work for right now. So thank you. Have a great year. And I get to say, see you in 2022. Bye now.
Mary, one more F-bomb to close out the year. Just one.
Oh, fuck you, Bobby.
Bye, everyone.
I can't believe that